Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion on the role of SMEs in sustainability as well as their real-life impact. I'm Mithun Joy, and I'm delighted to moderate today's conversation with the industry leaders from manufacturing, printing, and brewery industries. Sustainability is no longer on the agendas of just large corporations. It's vital for businesses from all the corners. SMEs make up a large percentage of UK businesses, and their commitment to sustainability will define the future of our economy. As Winston Churchill once said, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulders and offered the chance to do something special, unique to them and to their talents. And to that quote, SMEs are facing that moment in the push towards sustainability, and they're not just contributors, but innovators shaping to the path. Today, we will explore real challenges, opportunities SMEs are facing, the role of the government support, and the practical solutions for integrating sustainability into business strategy. I know Martin has already introduced the panelists, but let's have a quick introduction. I would like the panelists to quickly state your name, role, what exactly your business does, and not to put you on spot, but something interesting about you or your business.
Okay, well, I'm Tony Sartorius. Hi, everybody. Chairman of Alucast. Alucast is a foundry. What's unique about our business is that we've got 4 foundries, actually, or 4 foundry processes. That's sand, gravity, low pressure and high pressure. What that means is that we're able to move from a low volume, maybe prototyping area, get business in that area, and then migrate it into a higher volume area, such as gravity or maybe high pressure. That's unique within the UK. We also have a machine shop and able to produce castings that are supplied largely 55% into automotive, but there's a host of other industries that we supply as well.
Richard Morrow, Director of Central Mailing Services. We are a print and mailing house based in Birmingham. What's really unique about us is that we use technology to drive forward the industry. So effectively, we've always been seen as putting something into an envelope, but actually by using tech, we've done a lot of smart work. We use AI, and we work really with our clients to work on a data-driven marketing solution. But we're also a bit of a one-stop shop, so we can do still old-fashioned hand collating. We do enveloping, paper wrapping, poly wrapping, naked mailing, which isn't as exciting as it sounds. And from our point of view, what we're trying to do is always harness the power of technology to improve the ROI for clients, rather than just using the established production processing.
Richard, something interesting about you.
Oh, something interesting about
your business.
Something interesting about me. My son, for his sins, is a professional race kart driver and is ranked number 5 in the UK.
That's brilliant. I think, Tony, you skipped that portion.
Yeah, okay. Interesting about me. Well, being in the industry, I am a petrol head. I've got old cars. I've got a 1951 Riley, which is an enjoyable car, which I bought in 1976, I think it was. No, 77. So I've had it for many years. It's older than my children. I've also got a 1946 Willis Jeep, which is great fun to ride around in the summer.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Sam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'm Sam Back, co-founder of Brew in Sturchley, Birmingham. We set up in 2018, me and my business partner, gone from brewing in my attic in 2014 to then setting up what is now the region's biggest brewery. We've gone from brewing on brewery kit that was older than myself and business partner combined, that we just cobbled together from savings, to now a state-of-the-art brew house where we're by far the biggest in the region. We have a bar on site in the brewery, which is quite unique. If anyone's been, hopefully you know what I'm on about. We have another one in town as well in Jewellery Quarter where we do our barrel aging stuff. So we're very unique for Birmingham. There's not much like it. There's a few others similar, not of our scale. And the key kind of driver for us is customer experience when you're in the bars and the venues. And then hopefully also when you're out drinking our beer elsewhere, you're getting that same kind of relaxation. We say we sell beer, but really what we actually say is a good time. You're drinking beer, you're enjoying yourself, you're having a little break from life and enjoying it. Something unique about me is I'm getting older and still think I can play rugby. So despite my grumbles on a Sunday, I'm still doing it.
All right, thank you all for the introduction. Let's deep dive into the major questions regarding the sustainability. Now, sustainability is becoming a core consideration across the industries. So how is it impacting your sector? And what steps have you taken to integrate the sustainable practices into your operations? Tony, you want to?
Right. How we've moved ahead in trying to save energy and trying to be sustainable has really come from a background of being a high energy user, being part of the cast products industry within the UK. They've always had an interest in trying to save energy. I'm in aluminium. We melt the aluminium at 720 degrees. That's a high level to melt the aluminium. If we can save energy, clearly that's a good idea because we save money, but in the process, we're saving carbon emissions to atmosphere. The industry has always looked at energy price per tonne or the kilowatt hours per tonne. We've monitored that as a business since the 1990s and through what was called Target 2000 in the cast metal industry. By doing that, we were able to effectively save the climate change levy on our bills. Clearly, that was a financial advantage. Trying to produce components using less energy has always been something we wanted to do, being a high energy user. Those high energy users are the glass making industry, brick making industry, chemicals, paper, and we're classed as one of those high energy users. So it's imperative that we continue to do that. As we've developed, we've come from a basis of being sustainable in the material that we supply as well. Aluminium is a sustainable material. It's been produced in volume since the latter part of the 19th century. 1.6 billion tonnes of aluminium has been made since then, and about 1.2 billion tonnes is still in use today. So that's 75% of aluminium is still in use today. What that means is that all the money energy, it saves that energy having to reproduce a commodity that's going to be thrown away. So steel, the same, is reused. But we've come from that background of trying to be sustainable, and I think that's driven into the energy use as well.
Okay, thank you, Tony. But if I may ask, when you're trying to bring in such sustainability practices, what do you consider to be a huge burden? Is it the financial constraints, supply chain dependencies, or something else?
Initially, a burden is going to be getting people on board. Clearly, it's a team effort from your staff. And I was chatting to somebody on the way in, I think it was Kate, and saying, in your house, who turns off the lights? Well, the children don't, do they? It's you. But you've got to get your children to turn off the lights. And it's the same way with the team at work. If you can get them interested in saving energy and saving the planet, if you can get everybody on board and have a team atmosphere about saving energy, you're going to develop, and you'll develop much more quickly than a sort of top-down approach of saying you must do this, you must do that. We had lots of waste in the company. We're trying to drive those reductions in waste by this changing culture.
Thank you, Tony. That's very insightful. How about you, Richard?
So, slightly again, using part of Tony's example there. Obviously, we use paper, a heck of a lot of paper in our industry. So being able to make the best use of that, we're not a mill, we don't provide the pulp, but we take in the raw material and we turn it into letters, statements, brochures, anything that really will go through land onto a doormat. However, the other side of that is that we work in an industry that has a terrible PR. There's a lot of people that will say, oh, it's just wasteful, you're cutting down rainforests, we've got single-use polythene, we've got carrier bags ending up on the beach of Bahamas and things like this. So when just prior to COVID, we actually as a management team looked around and said, we've got to do something. So we were already starting to look at a sustainability path because you have this driver of, especially now, big corporations, companies that are funded by stakeholders, pension companies, VCs, that are all invested massive capital, NHS, public sector, they all want a sustainability roadmap. They all want you to be able to demonstrate that you have a responsible attitude to how you work. And if you can't demonstrate that, no matter how cheap you are, no matter how you can show other advantages, etc., you're not getting on that framework, you're not getting on that tender, you're not having the opportunity to promote and sell. And the big problem with that is that if you're then trying to head rush and build all of that sustainability in very quickly, one, it's incredibly expensive, and two, it's very disruptive, and you have the likelihood of going down the wrong path. So from our point of view, it's been a long process that we've kind of accelerated once we got to know the programme. And it's the big benefits for us is that it's opened so many more doors. I can talk about contract wins that we've had from big retail, primarily off the back of our sustainability and tech-led approach. We're still doing the same things, it's just we're doing them in a much smarter, cleverer and more responsible way.
Thank you, Richard. What about you, Sam?
We started off always being mindful of it. We're a young business. We've been hammered into us as sustainability being an important part of business ever since we started. So a few things we did from the start. We restricted some of our sales. So a lot of the breweries will send beer away in plastic kegs, which are just one way, which seems awful to us. So we've always invested in our own infinitely recyclable stainless steel kegs, as you said. We invested in cans from the start, which is a higher investment, but they're about a 30th the weight of bottles, significantly lighter. And we took the view that we've got to do it for our own conscience, but also at the time, as you were saying, we are going to need that sustainability criteria to win the bigger tenders as we grow. At the moment, a lot of people are asking for it now just as a tick box, but not necessarily requiring it or just knowing you're doing something. But we know that as the industry is changing, there's going to be more and more pressure on making sure you are driving it down and hitting certain criteria to be able to actually get those bigger contracts. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve on that. And a barrier we've had so far, given we're a small business and there's so many demands on our cash, is getting cash to invest in those bits of equipment. There's normally a pretty good payback on them when you actually work them out. It's just getting over that initial investment expenditure. So the grants really help, and hire purchase and other financing methods have helped us analyse what our payback is and then how we finance it and how we make it work.
Considering being a very smaller business, apart from the financial constraint, is there any other issues that you're facing when you're trying to implement these sustainable practices?
A team have been pretty good, actually. I don't know if it's because we've got a young team. Everyone's fairly mindful of it, of waste, and anything the team think they can do to improve it, they're coming to us. And like I said, we've tried to foster a culture of everything around us is about sustainability. It's one of our key pillars of the business that we communicate to all staff and try and get the people who are doing the job day in, day out, who are going to know it better than me on the ground floor, to suggest ideas how they think we can reduce waste, reduce energy, or do things quicker.
On that point, we instigated a kind of sustainability workshop, but it was led by people from all the different departments, so people on the production floor and the IT and the client services, and just got them to research through their own thing. It sparked a hell of a lot of debate about EVs and all sorts of things, but the buy-in has been fantastic, because then now you get people coming to you and say, what about if we do this, or I've seen that, or can we do this?
It's brilliant, isn't it? So we report, one thing we report on water usage, which the brewing industry is obviously pretty bad for. I think craft, they average 6 to 10 litres of water to make 1 litre of beer, which is terrible. We average around 4 to 5, and we report on this every month to the team. We try and bring measures in. So when we have a good month with it, we're analysing why, what have we done differently, how can we bring it down, and then the team buy into it, like I say, and they'll feedback ideas how they can improve it.
I think that's an important point. We recently got the ISO 14001 accreditation, and by doing that, we employed a team, really got together a team. That was, the maintenance department, the supervisors of the machine shop in the individual foundries, and ensured that they were on board together with the quality control department, or QMS system. Once you get that team together, everybody is understanding what the objectives are of that accreditation, and of course it's very closely associated with environmental issues and energy savings, which we monitor on a monthly basis, in our management accounts, and on a daily basis with the team, looking at what the energy consumptions have been the previous day.
Thank you. And it's very encouraging to know that you've already started with your sustainability practices and you're incorporating into operations. So on that note, let's say sustainability is often considered to be the big business issue. So, do you think SMEs are facing an unfair burden with net zero expectations, or do you see this as an opportunity?
I don't really think it's an unfair burden because there's always a commercial driver as well, as we've probably heard earlier, that if you're going to save money and at the same time save energy costs, you reduce your energy costs and reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, that's all commercially sensible idea, if providing you can get reasonable paybacks. Obviously, there's some paybacks which are much more quickly achieved by simple savings within the business. I think we heard earlier on that just ensuring that your compressors aren't running all the time, or that the air leaks in a manufacturing environment are poor. If they are, you've got to look at that straight away, because that's pounds going out of your business and energy wasted to atmosphere very quickly, and you can overcome that. We're 108 people in the company. We've got 6 apprentices, and some of those apprentices work in the maintenance department. They will go around every day. They'll get reports if there's an air leak. They'll go around and repair those air leaks, which saves that energy cost in your compressors. So those are key sort of areas.
Thank you, Tony. Richard, what do you think? Is it a burden or an opportunity?
I think there's a perception that it's a burden, and I think there can be an unrealistic expectation on small businesses that maybe are just office-based, etc. It's like, well, how am I going to make this massive difference? I think in some respects as a manufacturer, I have got it easier because I've got tangible, low-hanging fruit, as you like. I think what the bigger picture is to look at it as an opportunity to reevaluate all stages of the business, from supply chain, from procurement, so how you manage the office, people working from home. Simple things like just we put 4 EV chargers in and offered the EV charging a heavily discounted rate for the staff. A number of staff have changed to that. Despite, yes, there's politics around the EVs, it's helped us. I think the biggest problem is that businesses tend to think that it's got to be all spend, spend, spend. I think the first port of call for all businesses has to be knowledge. Because honestly, you can go out there, and if you don't engage with programs such as this, and you go on LinkedIn, there's all manner of people that are specialists that will give you a whole load of meaningless advice. I looked at a lot of it, I thought, hang on, this is contradictory. So I think you've got to be realistic and pragmatic about it. But ultimately, when you look at the goals that you achieve, the energy saving, the cost savings, the efficiencies, they're all things you want to put into your business anyway.
Thank you, Tony. How about you, Sam?
I kind of agree with the comments already that a lot of it does make business sense. There's a cost argument, and there is generally a benefit that comes with actually implementing all this. The key issue we had as a very small SME is time to do it. Everyone's already struggling with probably their day-to-day jobs. Getting enough done as a small business where there's a lot of demands on your time. So it's just making time for it, or trying to find someone who you can allocate that to in the business. That was our main struggle. I
think from that perspective, if you make it part of your daily systems, and that's what we do. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the guys get together. They're looking at the half-hourly energy use from the previous day. Was that machine left on? Was that machine left on? Why is that spiked up? We have that information because we've got sub-metering now, and that's helped immensely.
I must admit, we've only got a kind of a small senior team. The only way I could take it on was actually by delegating and promoting other people within to actually say, right, I'm going to give you some of this workload because I could take it on from what I wanted to do. I think depending on the size of the business, the senior staff have to kind of take the first step to bring everything and drag people with them, and eventually you convert them. It's very hard though, because it is easy in the day-to-day and all the pressures of all the economics, etc., to say, right, I've got to do this. And I echo Tony's comments. I just had to find time. I made myself I did the Green Advantage course. Yes, it was painful because there was a lot of hours and catching up. But I look at that time now as very, very wisely spent.
All right, thank you. I think the key points were, trying to create the awareness, getting the buy-in, and then sustainably but slowly making those efforts to achieve the kind of energy efficiency. Moving on to government policies and regulations. How have government regulations or funding schemes influenced your sustainability efforts? Additionally, what kind of support do businesses expect from government? I think Richard laughed for that, so I just want to know his opinion first.
So I laugh because we, in our industry, the deliverable is raw mail. I've got no other choice. They are the end supplier. They put things through letterboxes. They actually used to have a sustainable mail product, which we all were like, fantastic, because they're trying to go and limit ink coverage and all these good things you would look at. What's actually happened, though, is from a cost point of view, they've got rid of that. And there is very, very little that's been done on a regulation basis or Ofcom or anything to encourage the use of sustainable materials in our market sphere. In fact, you go to some people and you say, yeah, I can do all this is green and this is sustainable. And some people don't care because it's just a bottom of the line spreadsheet exercise of how can you be so cheap. And government-wise, what we've signed is they seem to just tax things, but with no thought about the opportunity. So I'll give you a great real-world example. There's a single-use polythene tax, which for us, we now use part-blended polythene. What I mean that is, you get a magazine and sometimes it's in a film wrapper rather than paper, goes to your letterbox. So the option is to use sustainable film, which is compostable, except for we don't produce that in the UK. That's imported. And to break it down and make it compostable, you have to get up to a huge temperature, which hardly any green bins or any councils will actually do. So it creates a general waste issue. There's no joined up thinking. There's no thinking from the government to encourage the people that benefit at the end, the gen householders from our industry, to actually recycle responsibly. There's no real way that the government have tackled that, except for just saying, right, we'll deal with councils and underfund them and the bin collection. So from my point of view, the regulations have not done anything for us at all to help us become more sustainable.
Thank you, Richard. I mean, if I could ask you, if looking forward, if you have to make a recommendation to government, what are the one or two things that you want to do for your business or for your sector?
Honestly, the biggest recommendation I can say is treat recycling responsibly. Actually look at what is generated, the waste. Don't look at it just from a cost point of view in terms of the households, but actually look at giving the households the ability to have regular collections or areas that they can recycle from. Packaging waste recycling can be done at various drop-off points, supermarkets for instance, and actually to put some robust policies in. Europe has a lead on this. We in the UK think it's like a dirty secret and we just like to go to landfill. And if you notice, there's under a lot of the other things, there's new landfill taxes, there's new taxes for landlords on waste. They're all going to impact us because it's going to see us with higher rents and rates and bits and pieces. It's all directly because we don't control the end environment. Control the end environment, it would benefit all of us as a business.
Thank you, Richard. Sam, do you want to take this question? Both ends.
We haven't been affected by regulation too much in our side of things. We're a bit smaller. We just fly under the, I don't know if you've come across it, the EPR responsibilities, for extended producer responsibility for the packaging. Okay. We just about float under it, but we will hit it in the next couple of years, so we will have to battle that. But at the moment, we've benefited from the schemes that are supported by government, the grants they've hit us, and they've helped us grow, but also grow more efficiently and get more efficient kitted. So we have benefited from those.
Thank you, Sam. How about in the manufacturing sector?
Well, in the foundry industry, we're regulated in terms of having to have a permit to operate as a foundry. That is mainly associated with the sand process, where there's a potential for sand to get into and around the building and the environs around the building. And we have to have special plant that basically filters the sand, and that's regularly checked each year by the local Environmental Protection Agency. So we follow that rigorously, and we pass the appropriate emissions tests from our stacks. So that's a regulation we have to follow. There are clearly other regulations that we have to follow in terms of the ISO 14001. Hazardous wastes have to be collected appropriately and disposed of correctly. But in addition, these days, the customers are requiring us to ensure that we have policies for reducing energy consumption. And whilst it's not an imperative from the government on SMEs at the moment, I think it will become that way. But also customer viewpoint, they're asking us to ensure that we've got 14001, that we have sustainable processes within the factory. Otherwise, we won't be able to supply them. So that's an important area. You know, if we want to retain that business, and it's important to retain it, we've got to follow those policies.
Do you have any recommendations to the government or the policy making?
Not really, as I say, we've not been impinged badly on that. The council understands we're a foundry. Sometimes we might have, let's say, a noise issue, but there's been, I think, one noise complaint in the last 15 years, so I'm pleased to say that.
That's good to know. I'm just very interested from the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme, which you were part of. Did you have an immediate impact, or do you expect it to, in the coming months or the coming years? What do you think the impact is from this programme?
The impact, I would say, is immense from the perspective that it's given a focus to the company, it's given a focus to the employees within the company to look at saving energy and thereby greenhouse gas emissions. That focus has been helped by the grant aid that we've got. We were one of the sort of bigger grant aid applications. We've spent £200,000 at the business. We've made investments in energy efficient furnaces, which reduce the amount of energy we use in the first place. We've spent £88,000 on submetering on 36 separate submeters, so we know where the energy is being used, and we can monitor that on a half-hourly basis, as I've said to you before, on a daily basis. We've also improved the insulation on the furnaces and spent about £12,000 on that. Our objective was to save somewhere in the region of 10% of our energy costs over a 12-month period, which would equate to about £80,000. And from my team's aggregation of savings so far on the cost improvement programmes that we've initiated, is we're already on that road, and we've saved £50,000. So the payback's looking good, certainly at the moment.
Well, that's brilliant to know. Thank you, Tony. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I liken it to rolling a snowball down a hill, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The initial contact point and discussion after the end of the first review was about our compressor. Ours was old, we use air to run an awful lot of the lines. It was very much a no-brainer to replace it. We got match funding for it. It's actually doing far more output for less work. So actually we're about 36% up in terms of the way that the machine is being able to be used in the business. Like Tony, we've put energy meters on all of our bits of plant. I use an app and I can see what the energy use is, and the plan there is to integrate that in. We're using AI and into our production schedule, so ultimately AI will control how we produce the work, and not only look at it from an efficiency point of view in terms of manufacturing, but also energy as well, to save money. And it's enabled the business to start really looking forward to other areas. It started the conversation with the landlords that we've now got a solar installation going in over our two factories, which is about some 60,000 square foot in total. And we've done a deal with the landlord, so he's paying for the solar installation, and we've extended our stay in his warehouse, effectively. Great for us, and it generates, again, I think it'll be about 80% of our energy usage. The biggest thing, I think, from my point of view, is the ongoing support. So you can look at all these different projects. AI is going to be massive for us. We've got a project at the moment where we're comparing gas trucks versus EV. Do we change? Do we go? What's the buyout? What's the payback, etc., etc. And having the fact that you've got the knowledge base that you can constantly send that information to has been really useful.
That's very encouraging, Richard. Thank you. What about you, Sam?
I really like this rolling snowball analogy. It's very similar to our approach with it. We've kind of gone through with a limited team, kind of one item at a time. Started off with the compressors, had a massive result on that. So we're using about the same energy we were before our compressors were running flat out. and we're producing twice as much nitrogen as we did before, with the added benefit that we're not buying in NaCO2. The nitrogen's replaced all that. And then we're now moving on to the energy monitoring side of it, so we're just kind of ticking them off as we go, and hopefully at the end we should get a good net saving. We already are on the compressor.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sam. I mean, of course, the sustainability and the energy management is an evolving field. So something I want to hear from you guys is, what kind of sustainability trends or innovations do you foresee in your industry in the coming years?
Well, that's really down to, I would say, the melting process. Now, there's a bit of a trade-off here, or difficulty. We use mostly gas within our business. We use gas to melt the aluminium. We're using some electric furnaces, but the bulk is on gas. Gas is much cheaper, obviously, than electric at the moment, and put that into financial terms, we pay about 4.5 pence per kilowatt for gas, but we pay 25 pence, as we heard earlier, for electric. The cost of that is the usage is we're using 7.5 million kilowatts of gas and 2.5 million kilowatts of electric. But in the end, the electric costs us more, even though we're using less. So it's difficult for the industry to move to electric, because it's a big investment to change all your furnaces. It's also more costly, So what we want is that the industry, in terms of the melting foundry furnace industry, has to develop into much more efficient electric furnaces. And if we could do that in the industry, it'd be a big boon for the whole aluminium industry within the UK.
Do you think hydrogen has a place in your business plan?
We haven't investigated that. Hydrogen clearly is being looked at in terms of propulsion for vehicles, and it may be used, I know, in yellow goods perhaps, certainly in some train applications. Hydrogen can be used because it makes kind of perfect sense to have a hydrogen plant or a hydrogen supply facility next to the diesel facilities, and then the diesel facilities will reduce and the hydrogen comes in. But these are, I think, developments for 5 years or so, or certainly 3 to 5 years.
Gotcha, thank you. What about you, Richard?
So for us, obviously, I develop a product that ends up in pretty much all of your doorsteps. One of the big things for us is looking at how we can make that smarter, delivering something around the country or around the world as a posted item has an on-cost, it has a carbon cost. So we really want to ensure that what we deliver to somebody is useful, is relevant, on time, and gets the most from both opportunities. So that goes back to using AI, that goes back to using data scientists and actually making sure what we're sending out is the best possible pack. The other side of that is the accountability. One of the trends that I foresee and has already started happening is there's this carbon cost. And at the moment, you can go online and you can download some sort of software and you can say, right, to produce X, Y, and Z has got this carbon cost. But majority of the tools that I've looked at are really basically just rough estimations, and they've got no real buy-in to your supply chain. So we're developing something with the university at the moment to actually give that some much more relevance. The reason I say that is I think over time, you're going to have a currency that's going to be carbon as well. So people are going to, in terms of our customers, not the end clients, the buyers for the, customers for, say, cotton traders, but they're going to say, okay, what's the real world cost of this physically? What's the carbon cost of that? And that's going to be one of my differentiations between me and another supplier. So bringing both AI and the real understanding of the total carbon cost to produce a mail pack for me are going to be the innovations in the future.
That's good to know, thank you. Sam, what do you think in the brewing industry?
I'm really excited about the technical innovations coming through. You mentioned natural gas. We've got a gas-fired steam boiler. Again, it doesn't make sense for us to change to electric because it's 4 times the cost to run and they're not 4 times more efficient. We know we need to upgrade it at some point with the government trying to phase out gas, so we're not sure how to invest in that. Hydrogen's one we have considered, because I know they do hydrogen burners for it, but then you've got to have a hydrogen network. We've looked at solar on the roof that can, with spare capacity, generate hydrogen, but I think all the tech for that's a bit too new. So we're hoping over the next 5-10 years that technology will develop, and that's something we can look at. Other things we've looked at along those lines, what was it then? How would come to mind then? Yeah, just as a lot of the bigger brewers have scale that we don't, which means the kit they've got, it doesn't work down to our scale, unfortunately, but there are companies bringing it in now. So carbon capture has come into small-scale breweries in the last couple of years. We'll hopefully start seeing more of those come in as well. That means we can start reducing our energy usage from the lessons the big guys have got. We also generate quite a lot of waste product. We deal with natural ingredients, we deal with barley, hops, and when we use them, we don't extract everything from them. We can't quite, so there's still some stuff left in. For instance, our grain that we use, so all our barley that provides the sugar and the backbone for beer, it currently goes off to an anaerobic digester over in Coleshill, and that produces natural gas and compost. The anaerobic digester plants are getting smaller, so there's a scope we could potentially get one on site, and we can move our own waste products into that, and that can generate gas to fire our burner. There's other options coming through, and it's quite exciting seeing those technical innovations coming down at a smaller scale and stuff that we can then hopefully apply to our business as we grow.
Thank you, Sam. Moving into the final question, I think I'll start with Sam, considering you've just built up your business from the scratch very recently. For SMEs that's just starting with their sustainability or the net zero plans, what's one piece of advice? What's the golden nugget that we're looking at?
It's hard to say golden nugget. First, it was reach out to yourselves at Aston just to put a plan in place and have the overall picture. We had ideas of what we could do, but getting some advice in on where your big ticket items are, because a really small SMEs like us, your time is stretched, as I keep labouring. So just focus on your big ticket items and just knock them off as you can go, and focus on stuff that has your quickest payback, and eventually you'll get down to it and you'll get some good net savings overall.
Thank you, Sam. What about you, Richard?
I'll have to echo Sam's words there. If you try and do too much, you just fail at it, and there are so many different things. Pick the easiest wins. If it's simply just putting recycling bins for tins, plastic, paper, foodstuffs in the office, you've made a start. The one thing I would say, and picking up on Martin's point, is understand your costs. Even if you're not into the finance team, go and sit with the finance, go and sit with paid ledger, bought ledger. Understand what the costs are. An electricity bill is not the easiest thing to understand. It took me a lot of time, because there's all these different tariffs, there's standing charges, there's different times of peak, and Google and ChatGPT are your friend, I'll be honest, when you can start to do this. But understand the raw cost first, because then you can write it on a whiteboard, you can put it on a note, you can do whatever you want on it, post it or wherever, and then you've got a start point, because you know you're going to reduce a bit of that. That gives you the feel good, because ultimately, as you start, you want to be able to see, as Sam says, the quick wins, because once you've had a couple of quick wins, it's a bit like everything else. You get addicted and you go, right, okay, I'm going to make the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And before you know it, you're into the harder stuff, and it's got a team of people, and you're looking at some spreadsheets and stuff, but you can remember and you can see the fiscal benefit that you've already had.
Yes, I'd echo those 2 points. I would say start now on that energy saving programme. So identify, the quick wins, as you say. From our perspective, certainly air was the main one. We had 3 compressors, some backup compressors as well. Those compressors were running, they were variable speed compressors, and I know probably some people in here don't have them, but we have variable speed compressors. The idea is that the compressor only works when there's a requirement to pull air, from the compressor. But they were running at full belt, basically, or full speed, because we had so many air leaks. You could hear the air leaks, so get people to stop those air leaks, have a reporting system, some way to get them fixed early. That will be a quick win. The one thing you mentioned about the electricity bills, yes, be aware of what you're paying. So make it easy on yourselves. Keep the electricity bills and the gas bills in a separate file. That means you don't have to look back 2 years to get them when you ask for a grant. But also try and learn about the electricity bill. One of the things I say to government is why do they let, and there's no energy company here today, which is unfortunate probably, but why do they let the energy companies, and particularly electric, have so complicated bills? The reason they have complicated bills is to overcharge you. And I know it's a political point, but we are overcharged, and they will confuse the user as much as they can by adding on different charges which people don't really understand. And when you try to interrogate the energy providers, they won't say, oh, we'll make it easy for you, because if they do, they won't make so much money. And I know that's it's a contentious issue, let's say, but it's true, and it's difficult for industry.
Thank you so much. I mean, those are very valuable advices and suggestions for SMEs that's starting out. I think we've got time for some questions from audience. So if you want to ask a couple of questions, I think the panelists can answer. Right, I'll just bring the mic to you.
Hi. Tony mentioned that air there was one of the top things you'd gone for, but I just wondered what of the other things that you've already put in were the sort of quickest, easiest and biggest bang for the buck things that you've all managed to do?
I mentioned earlier that the two big areas apart from air was that our furnaces, some of the furnaces were inefficient, so we replaced those with more modern furnaces. The furnaces were kind of 15, getting on really 20 years old, some of them. Now, when we put them in, they were energy efficient in comparison to the previous furnaces. And so we're always key on looking at energy. When we put those older furnaces in, 15, 20 years ago, they were making a 40% gas saving on energy, which was great. But the new ones are still saving more money now. That was the first. The second was the big investment, and it was £80,000, as I mentioned earlier, on sub-metering. That's knowing where the energy is being used. So it's very much like at home. You have your smart meter. You look at it and you say, oh, where's that energy being used? I'm fortunate enough to have a holiday home, and I looked at the holiday home and I was leaving it, and I kept on switching off everything to see if I could get it down to naught, and I couldn't get it down to naught. What's going on here? And I think in the end I found it was sort of, I think it was down to sort of 1 kilowatt a day, which worked out at £2.70 a week, £125 a year, just by one thing being on. And I think it was something like the TV was on standby or something, so I switched it off. But it's that sort of thing. It's knowing that detail, isn't it? Otherwise you can't do anything.
Any other questions? Yeah, sure.
You mentioned this thing about a sustainability roadmap. This is to yourself there. One of our customers have sort of been banging on about us, saying that we need to provide one. Yeah. We've got a couple of principles in place. We've done a lot of the things that you guys have already done, but we find it a bit difficult to put that down onto paper yet, to say what are our future goals. So how do you sort of predict what you're going to be doing in the future, not just what you're doing now?
Well, I think the roadmap for us has become an integral part of business strategy anyway. So when you see yourself 2 years, 5 years, 10 years time, and obviously you're going to do the market analysis as well. So for us, it's the ability to document where and understand where your processes are at the moment. And for instance, I'll give you a couple of examples. We know we want to integrate AI not only into our production scheduling, but also into maintenance and quality control. Because the maintenance side, it will provide real-world savings in terms of energy, because we know the machines will be running, but also preventative maintenance means less downtime, more effectiveness. But the quality control, that will actually save bodies, human beings, because we can do it effectively. What we are doing is putting milestones. Is put a milestone down and document it. Now, this, from our point of view, sits alongside us in terms of R&D as well, so what we're trying to do and output. From a milestone point of view and the roadmap, you've got to have a goal. You can get into the fundamentals of what's the ultimate outcome for your business. Are you wanting to sell it? Are you wanting to do this, or whatever? But really, from our point of view, we've looked at it and said, okay, do we think the industry is going to be in X amount of years? Where will we sit in that industry, and what's our USP and our differentiation? And from a sustainability point of view, what do we think we can offer as extra? Because what we look at now isn't going to be what the market's going to be requiring in 5 years. There is an element of forecasting there, but I would say to your customers, you've got to know your market space well. You've got to know what the trends are going to be, and you've got to be able then to say it's a question of matching market trends, market requirements to what you can do. And then I basically use a system of Gantt charts and process maps, even basic flow charts to showcase where we're doing in the projects that are ongoing. You can't all run them at the same speed. Some are going to be different types of speeds. Some are going to require, as Sam says, he's waiting on tech to catch up. That's not a bad thing, because Sam's not going to develop hydrogen boilers himself. He's got to wait for the industry to do that. But at least if you know and you've got a process documented that that's where we want to take the business, that's credible. What isn't so credible is when people say, I just want to save X percentage. You've got to be able to break down and showcase what you're going to do and how you're going to achieve that. Even if you don't necessarily have all the facts and figures to back that up at the moment because the tech hasn't come, you have to be able to do that. Because ultimately, like any kind of investment or any business plan, you've got to be able to build that roadmap to make it achievable, and you've got to have a responsibility to the business to know that is going to be the right course of action. You know, I'm not going to necessarily take myself into software development because that's not what my skill set is in terms of my business. But I know that using software development brings the AI, brings a massive benefit into my business. Does that help you?
I think so. Would you say that you started it off, let's say, quite loose, and then over time it got more and more detailed?
100%. And I think every time you look at and review, we do quarterly reviews on not just in terms of the management, but also in terms of the sustainability projects and where the industry is. It's a fast-changing situation, thanks to, as Martin said, the conflicts and things, and energy prices shooting up and the different regulations. So you've got to kind of be able to make that plan flexible and adaptable. As you're doing that, you're refining it anyway, because you've got more knowledge. You've also got knowledge of what your competitors are doing, what the consumer is doing, what the industry is doing, what the regulations are doing, and then those parameters help define you as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we are out of time now, but if you would like to connect with the panelists, do you have a burning question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you felt ISO 9001 or 14001 have kept up with the pace that you've made in your own businesses.
Honest answer, no.
I'd sort of challenge that to a certain extent. But 14001 has become much more energy focused. I think maybe 15 years ago or 10 years ago, it wasn't. And now, if you have an audit, and I've had that audit recently, they do focus very, very heavily on that energy monitoring, energy reduction, and you mentioned water as well. You know, have the water usage monitored on a monthly basis within your management review, and try and reduce it and have targets to reduce it. So yes, I think they have.
I think it depends if you're a high energy usage business.
Yeah.
I think if you look at it from a low energy or a medium energy use business, we attained 14,001 about 12 years ago, and if you look at the parameters and the things that have been set inside there, we're doing way in advance of what's actually needed for that audit. Where I feel like, same as 9001, they are not going deep enough into understanding what a business should. Where they fall down is they just check what you're doing at the moment, and that you've got a very loose plan to improve. And as long as you've met that criteria, what they don't do is say, okay, you're here, what's your CI? Where's your constant improvement? Where are you going to be in 3 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years? How are you going to constantly develop? Because otherwise you can get an ISO and just maintain it. What's the point in that?
There's an interesting one, because you've got ISO 9001, and it might be technical for some of the people around here, but there's one called IATF 16949, which you might know, which is the International Automotive Task Force. that was started by all the big automotive companies within Europe to ensure that their supply chains were, had a good quality management system. Within that, they have the environmental as well, and that you can have sort of KPIs, let's say, within that as well. To if you set a KPI, you've got to have an achievement record to show that you're doing something.
But that's what I think the ISOs need. You need some, because, for instance, in my industry, there's very few regulatory bodies. I mean, there's nobody going and saying, once you achieve that, how are you going to improve? What's the new thing? Where, if you've introduced an innovation, or you've changed the process and that KPI is improved, or what the output is, or you've managed reduce your waste, it just stops, doesn't it? It's not, oh well, we'll get even better. And that for me, it's a big issue, because there's no added value there.
All right, thank you. If you still have burning questions, please feel free to connect with the panelists after the session. And I want to take this time to thank the panelists for sharing their valuable insights. I hope it has been thought-provoking. I would also like to thank the audience for patiently listening. I hope it had some use to it. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the event.